So imagine you're standing in front of this massive, jagged, 2-ton block of rough marble,
Just a giant unshaped rock.
right? A huge piece of stone. And you've been tasked with creating an absolute masterpiece from it. Now, your instinct, like pretty much anyone else's, is probably to start building.
Yeah, you want to gather materials and start putting pieces together.
Exactly, stacking things from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
But the rules of this specific universe say that you aren't allowed to build anything. Like you cannot add a single ounce of material.
Which completely flips the script on how we normally think.
Right, because in this universe, the masterpiece is already completely finished. It's just perfectly suspended inside that solid rock.
Yeah.
And your only job is to just, get everything else out of the way.
It's a complete inversion of how we operate, and that's really what we're getting into today. We're pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources to explore what the authors call the world of Michelangelo.
Yes, welcome to today's deep dive, everyone.
And our mission for this deep dive is to sort of map out the physics of this conceptual world. It's a place that operates on this single, almost terrifying law, the power of subtraction.
Because, in our normal everyday reality,
Yeah.
creation is almost entirely about addition.
Right,
Like,
absolutely.
like if you want a painting, you add layers of paint to a blank canvas.
Yeah, or if you're writing a story, you add words to a page.
Exactly. Or even if a company wants to solve a problem, they usually just add a new committee or a new software tool. We just equate creating with accumulating stuff.
We do, but the defining philosophy of the world we're exploring today is that beauty is not decoration. Beauty is revelation.
Revelation. I love that word for this.
Right, and that distinction between decoration and revelation, it changes the entire mechanism of how people in this world function.
Oh, so?
Well, they genuinely believe the universe is already complete, like the perfect form, the ideal solution, the ultimate truth. It already exists right in front of us.
We just can't see it because it's covered up.
Exactly. It's buried under layers of noise and distraction and just, well, excess material. So the act of creation is entirely about excavation.
Excavating. I was trying to visualize this earlier, and I kept coming back to Legos.
Oh,
Yeah, think about a massive, just chaotic bin of thousands of Lego blocks all mashed together into this giant, colorful brick.
Okay, I can picture that.
And if you want a spaceship, you don't start snapping pieces together from a pile on the floor. In this world, the spaceship is actually already built.
It's locked inside that giant brick.
Exactly. It's right there. You're just carefully popping off the wrong blocks, like the red ones, the mismatched gears, until only the spaceship is left.
That captures the essence of it perfectly. I mean, you aren't the architect conjuring the spaceship out of thin air. You're the excavator.
Right?
But obviously, the stakes in the world of Michelangelo are infinitely higher than plastic blocks, which kind of brings us to the actual mechanics of how this subtraction works.
Yeah, and this is where I honestly struggle with the practicality of this world,
Mhm.
because it sounds paralyzing.
It does sound intimidating.
Right. If the perfect figure is trapped inside a massive block of stone, how do you actually know what to take away? Like one wrong swing of the chisel and you snap off the statue's arm.
And you can't just glue it back on?
No, there's no undo button. So if the standard is absolute perfection through subtraction, how does anyone ever muster the courage to take that first swing?
Well, that paralysis makes total sense from our modern perspective, but it ignores a really fundamental mechanism of this world, which is that the material has its own logic.
Its own logic. What do you mean?
You don't just walk up to a 2-ton block of marble with a chisel and try to force your own idea onto it. You literally have to listen to the stone.
Listen to the stone. Okay, so let's break down the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
What does listening to a rock actually mean for a normal person?
Well, it comes down to physics and geology, really. Marble isn't just this blank, uniform substance. It was formed by immense heat and pressure over millions of years.
So it's not perfectly even inside.
Not at all. It has veins, it has microscopic fault lines, it has a natural grain, almost like a piece of wood does.
Oh, wow. I never really thought about stone having a grain.
Yeah, it does. And if a sculptor decides, say, I want the arm to point straight up, but that direction crosses a natural fault line in the stone.
The arm is going to break.
Exactly. The tensile strength will fail, and it'll shatter under its own weight.
So you literally cannot force your will onto the material. The geological history of that specific rock dictates what it's even allowed to become.
Right. You have to study the veins and the flaws to find out how the rock actually wants to hold together.
That is wild.
And see, the creators in this world, they believe the human body is the closest thing to the divine. And that divine form is what's trapped inside.
So by finding the physical strength of the stone, you're actually
Yeah.
discovering the posture of the figure hiding inside it.
You are cooperating with the physical limits of reality, not fighting them.
That completely reframes the whole process. It's not about, like, imposing some genius idea from your brain onto the world. It's about paying incredibly close attention to what the world can actually support.
It's a much more humble approach, really.
It is. And if we pull that out of the Renaissance workshop and apply it to today, I mean, I see this everywhere.
Oh, for sure.
Like, think about a massive, bloated corporate structure, or even just an over-engineered piece of software.
That is a perfect parallel.
Right. Because a bad programmer will just keep adding lines and lines of code to fix bugs.
Right.
Creating this massive, unstable tower of text.
It's patching things constantly.
Exactly. But the master programmer looks at the system, finds the natural grain of the software, and just deletes 1,000 lines of code.
And suddenly the program runs twice as fast.
Yes. They didn't build a faster program. They just subtracted the excess until the fast program was revealed.
Which leads directly into the mindset required to actually live in the world of Michelangelo. Because the psychological weight of this approach is immense.
I can imagine.
Yeah, we really have to look at what the citizens of this world actually desire. Because it is fundamentally at odds with modern culture.
Oh, completely. Because modern culture is just obsessed with volume and speed, right? We want quick attention, viral moments, move fast and break things.
Right. But the citizens of this conceptual world, they don't care about being famous for their quirky personalities. They don't care about virality.
So what do they actually want?
What they want, above all else, is permanence. They want to touch something greater than themselves. They want their work to endure centuries after they're gone.
Wow, so their own identity is totally secondary to the work itself.
Exactly. Because to them, the work isn't really theirs.
Right, they just found it.
Yes. To them, the work is a fundamental truth that they just managed to free from the chaos. And to achieve that kind of permanence, their perception of time has to be radically different from ours.
I was thinking about that. Like, if you're constantly looking for the hidden flaws, the fault lines, the veins in the marble, or, the flaws in a project or a schedule, you have to stare at ordinary things for an uncomfortably long time.
You really do. I mean, in our world, we are completely governed by the clock. We work until a timer goes off or a bell rings or a specific calendar date hits.
Yeah, we say the project is due Friday morning, so whatever state it's in by Thursday night, that's what we're calling finished.
Ah, yes. The classic Thursday night scramble.
I know it way too well.
We all do. But in the world of Michelangelo, you work until the work is right. The deadline is entirely irrelevant to the truth of the material.
But wait, if you're spending years staring at the flaws in a single rock, or spending a whole year on just one project instead of churning out 100 okay projects.
The modern mind starts to panic.
Exactly. How do you know you're actually getting anywhere? If the standard is this impossible perfection and your only method is just endlessly chipping away, how does progress even happen?
Well, it requires a complete paradigm shift in how we measure progress.
Okay, how so?
We usually measure progress by accumulation, right? Like how many pages did I write today? How many emails did I answer?
Right.
Volume.
Exactly. But in this world, progress is not measured in volume. It is measured exclusively in clarity.
Clarity. Okay, let's trace that out because clearly things do eventually get finished in this world. Masterpieces do emerge. So what is the actual progression from a chaotic block of reality to a finished permanent truth?
The sources actually outline a very logical, chronological evolution for this. It begins, obviously, with confronting the raw material.
A big block of stone.
Right. But it's also the disorganized thesis paper, or the chaotic daily schedule, or a deeply flawed system. It's dense, it's heavy, and it's full of both potential and noise.
Yeah, and the human instinct is to either just walk away from it or start adding new things to mask all that chaos. But the citizen of this world picks up the chisel.
Which triggers the next phase, the grueling physical reality of removal.
The actual chipping away. Exactly. This is where patience becomes a tangible tool. It's the quiet, really unglamorous work of chipping away the lies, the distractions, the unnecessary features. It's thousands of tiny decisions to just say no.
I really want to ground this for you listening, because the sources originally used this very abstract image of a stone hand breaking through a wall with words like dream and listen, floating around like dust.
Yeah, it's very poetic.
It is, but I think it's actually much more visceral and practical than that.
How do you mean?
Well, think about writing. Like when you're writing something that really matters, the act of subtraction isn't just dreaming or listening. It's the physical, sometimes painful act of taking a red pen and striking through a paragraph you just spent 3 hours writing.
Oh, that hurts just thinking about it.
Right. But you do it because you realize it's just decoration. It's deleting adjectives. It's stripping the sentence down to its bare bones until it actually punches you in the gut. The chisel is literally the backspace key.
That is a brilliant translation of the concept.
You're just physically removing the excess so the core meaning can finally breathe.
And when you finally delete that last unnecessary adjective, you hit the third phase.
Which is?
The emergence of truth. The core reality is suddenly visible. The classical figure steps out of the stone, the software runs flawlessly, the sentence perfectly captures the emotion.
Wow. And because it's not just a decoration, because it's fundamentally true, it survives.
Yes. It endures, it outlasts the trends, the viral cycles, and even the creator themselves.
Huh?
And finally, because it endures, it fundamentally alters the landscape.
It changes how people see the world.
Exactly. When people encounter a true masterpiece or a perfectly designed system, it resets their baseline for what is even possible.
So this entire journey hinges on the belief that the perfect outcome was always just sitting right there, waiting for someone patient enough to clear the room.
Which brings us to the core philosophical anchor of this entire framework.
Okay, lay it on me.
If the universe is already complete, and all the brilliant ideas and perfect forms are already sitting right in front of us, then the physical struggle of removing the excess isn't just a tedious chore you have to suffer through to get your prize.
Wait, I think I see where you're going with this.
The struggle of the chisel, the agony of deleting that code, the discipline of saying no to 100 distractions, that struggle is not the obstacle to the meaning. The struggle is the meaning.
Wow. You know, I was really wrestling with this whole concept because I always view perfection as an endpoint, like a finish line you cross. But what you're saying is that in the world of Michelangelo, perfection is just a compass bearing.
Exactly. It's a direction, not a destination.
That is a massive shift. So you don't reach perfection, park the car, turn off the engine, and say, okay, I'm done.
No, not at all.
You just walk in the direction of perfection by constantly subtracting the noise. I mean, you might never fully free the figure from the stone in your lifetime.
Many didn't.
Right. But the daily act of picking up the chisel and refusing to settle for the excess, that act alone gives your life total meaning.
It elevates the mundane tasks of editing, organizing, and simplifying into an actual pursuit of truth. It's this lifelong commitment to looking closer and trusting that underneath all the mess, there's something profoundly beautiful waiting to be found.
Let's pull this all together for the listener,
Yeah.
because we have covered a lot of deep philosophical ground today.
It really have.
We've explored a universe where creating isn't building, it's excavating. We've talked about how you have to let the physical logic of the material dictate the outcome, whether that's the grain of the marble or the realities of a software system.
Right.
And we've seen how progress is measured not by how much you produce, but by how much clarity you can achieve through relentless, patient subtraction.
And the most vital question we have to ask is how this specific worldview applies to you listening right now, today. Because the beauty of this philosophy is that it doesn't require a Renaissance workshop to practice.
Exactly. You don't need a 2-ton block of marble. The raw material is everywhere.
Think about the messy, overwhelming problems in your own life right now. Maybe it's decision fatigue from trying to manage a schedule that is just bursting at the seams.
Or maybe you're staring down a complicated school or work project that just has way too many moving parts.
Or maybe it's as simple as a bedroom or a living space that feels chaotic and unmanageable.
And our immediate cultural reflex is always to consume our way out of the problem, isn't it? Like, what can I add?
Always.
I need to add a new time management app to fix my schedule. I need to buy more organizational bins to fix my room. I need to add more slides to my presentation to make it seem more impressive.
But the world of Michelangelo demands that you drop that instinct completely. It challenges you to look at your overwhelming schedule or your chaotic project and ask, what can I subtract to reveal the peace or the clarity that is already hiding underneath?
Right, like if I strike 3 useless meetings from my calendar, does a productive afternoon suddenly emerge from the marble?
Yeah. Or if I remove half the slides from this presentation, does the actual message finally connect with the audience?
When you apply the logic of subtraction, you stop fighting the material. You stop trying to force 50 hours of activity into a 24-hour day. You find the natural grain of your own life.
It's incredibly empowering, really, because it means you already have everything you need. The masterpiece of your project or your schedule or your living space, it's already there.
You just have to have the discipline to clear away the dust.
Exactly.
That is such a brilliant way to look at it. But, as we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final lingering thought that this whole philosophy leaves me with, and it's actually a little unsettling.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, we've spent this entire time talking about finding the masterpiece by chipping away the excess, right?
Yeah.
And we assume that if we remove the distractions, the noise, the bloated schedules, we will inevitably uncover something beautiful and true. But it leaves you with this haunting question to chew on. What if you spend years diligently chipping away all the excess, stripping away every single distraction, and you discover that your block of marble was just empty all along?
Wow. That is the ultimate risk of subtraction. It forces you to confront what is truly there without the comfort of decoration.
And maybe that's the most terrifying, thrilling part of picking up the chisel in the first place. Thank you all so much for taking this deep dive with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure unpacking the world of Michelangelo with you. Keep looking for the hidden shapes in your everyday life, and we will see you on the next one.